The forum started in 2000. I took over in 2002, and we developed from there into having forums in various parts of Sefton. I did it for 12 years. So it's been going a long time. This is why we mustn't lose it.
I felt really lonely and I wasn't connected that well with people. And I just happened to find out about it through Justine. She said to me, come along and see what you think. So I did. And they were very lovely. There were people there. They're from all parts of Sefton. So you had the Southport, you had Formby, you had Bootle. What was really good was they came along with bits of information and advice, like how to keep warm in the winter, saving on bills.
I enjoyed the meetings. I enjoyed the people who came in and spoke to us. A lovely lady named Margaret said, I've got my eye on you, I've got something in line. And then it was a couple of months down the line before she said, I'd like you to become an advocate.
When I first joined the Older People's Forum, it was to get I like to interact with other people. I've always been like that. And I heard of the forum and I went, and I knew it would be all sorts of different walks of life.
Well, I was actually born in London, in Hackney, but by the time I was about 2 or 3, we moved out to a place called Stanmore in Middlesex. We used to go once a year up to Buckingham Palace to watch the change of the guards, and I always thought, they all seem so severe and strict, and all right, it's fine, there's a royal family, but I think they seem to live in a world of their own. And, you know, they've got these huge palaces where we lived in a little flat to start with. So it just seems to be, I don't know, I always feel like we're not on the same level. I mean, I know a lot of people love the royal family, I can see that, but it's not really my cup of tea.
I can remember, you know, when King George VI died.
We were out having our playtime, and the next thing was we were all told we had to go into the main hall. We were told then that King George had died, and we were sent home.
Her Majesty the Queen had her coronation, and I can remember being in it, because at that time, very few people had televisions. And I can remember sitting in a shop on Driffield High Street, watching it in black and white.
And the whole of the coronation, we were there at school in the hall for the day. How we came to have one, I don't know, but it was a large television. And we watched the whole of the ceremony. Very few people had televisions of their own at that time.
I didn't see it on a television because we didn't have one.
So my father was determined he was going to see the coronation. So he bought this 12-inch Philips black and white TV. It was more box than screen.
And I think I saw the coronation probably some time afterwards on Pathernewers. Didn't get to the cinema very often because I lived in a village.
We went on a school trip to the cinema to see it in full colour. And I think that might have been what is now the Plaza in Waterloo.
Nobody had a TV, so they all wanted to come and see the coronation. So I was lining up the seats as if it was a cinema. Had a torch to show them in and put the light out because you couldn't see much in this thing. But Mrs. Donnelly, she was one of the neighbours. She was always grabbing the front seats. Nobody could see past her. Quite a big lady.
We were one of the few that had got a television in our road. I mean, it was only a little 12-inch that was black and white. But, I mean, so the house was quite full because some of the neighbours came in to see it and everything.
And, of course, I saw a bit of it last night, but that was in colour.
One I met as a youngster was actually the Queen Mother, but there was a boulevard they built between Aberdeen, the top end of the town, down to the beach, because people, British holidays, it was always a bit of a bottleneck, so they built a boulevard, as they call it. It was a dual carriageway. And for some reason or other, the Queen Mother agreed to come and open this boulevard. And so all those kids were lined up, and she just came walking past and patted you on the head or said hello. Or so. She was very friendly with women. You just felt you were talking to your grandmother, you know.
And in my set, which is the nurses there, was a lady whose father was the Queen's physician when they were in Manchester or in the northwest. So she was lucky in that she got to the Queen's Garden party every year, which gave us all a sparkle because she was all dressed up in best finery, something we never did, you know.
It's strange, really, because I didn't really, until this year, realise that my wedding anniversaries coincided with Her Majesty's main Jubilees. This came as a card. It says, "I am pleased to know that you celebrate your diamond wedding anniversary on the 17th of March 2022. I send my congratulations and best wishes to you for such a special occasion." And of course signed by Elizabeth and my husband and my name at the bottom.
I'm a member of the British Pteridological Society, and Prince Charles is the patron for the British Pteridological Society. There is not another fernery like that one in the Botanic Gardens. It is the only proper collection of horticultural plants. Royal Botanic Gardens, Edinburgh, another royal connection there, came down to the Botanic and I did a spiel about leaving a legacy. And then 4 years' work, and we now have an international collection of ferns in a venue that is nowhere else in the country.
The OBE there's a civil and there's a military. I pioneered the creation of standards relating to the electrotechnical side of machines, and that's what did it. I was told. They don't tell you, you know. But it was a letter I received from one of my bosses that said, it's clear that the international standards, what you're doing, has a lot to do with it. You walk up to Her Majesty, you don't say anything, she doesn't say anything to start with, you then step back, bow, and then retreat backwards, and then turn right and leave the room.
I've got a prayer book here that was given to me by my grandmother. There's an inscription in there that says, "Marion, with love from Gran, on your 12th birthday, 1953." And it is to commemorate the coronation of Her Majesty the Queen, 2nd of June, 1953, and the photograph of her. This prayer book is quite dear to me because my grandmother was blind and deaf, so my mother had to write the inscription, so that joins them together.
I think one of the challenging things, it was, my daughter, when we discovered she was profoundly deaf, and if she'd done something wrong, she'd get told off. And she used to wear 2 hearing aids sort of here, and I'd be ranting and raving at her or telling her off, for doing something wrong. And she'd look at me like this, and then she'd go. She'd be tapping the hearing aids and say, "What did you say? I didn't hear that." And I'd go, "You did hear it," but she didn't want to hear it.
I've had problems with my eyes, but I'd put in, with my colleagues in the fernery, an awful lot of ferns, but I never actually knew what they looked like. So I went and spoke to, I've always been under the Royal Hospital, and this young man said, "Are you prepared to take a gamble? I can put the lenses, because I had really -18 thick specs, I can put those lenses in your eyes." And so over 3 years he did this one, and then they did this one.
Because what happens is, of course, you get these little bits of protein that develop within the lens itself. And so what they do is they actually zap it ultrasonically, dissolve it, draw it out, and then insert a new plastic lens, and then seal it in with a laser welding rod or whatever they use. It seems to be fine. I mean, it's in this eye. I had it last Tuesday, and theoretically I shouldn't be allowed out, But it's working quite well. I've had a look through it, and I can tell the difference.
So for that first time, I could see all the colours and the textures on the ferns. It was just an absolute gift, an absolute gift.
I worked for Shell at the time, and you had to be moved on every 2 or 3 years, and I had been moved for a while. They said, there's a position coming up in Chile. And I thought, fancy Chile. And I was learning Spanish, and we were getting into all the culture. This move was going to be quick. I went into the office one day, and they said, personnel, or HR as we call them, want to speak to you. And they said, we've changed it, you're going to Nigeria. What? He's been learning Spanish, and how people tell me how wonderful Chile is, and I'm going to the swamp of Africa. So that didn't go down too well, because Anne's parents are both doctors, and they were saying, full of diseases and all sorts of stuff. So they were in a panic, but it was never as bad as that. But we were very fortunate. My wife's actually a very good golfer, so she ended up playing for the Nigerian ladies team. And we travelled all over Nigeria because of golf.
My hopes for the future, as far as the forums are concerned, is that we can get something up and running again.
I do hope it will continue, because I don't think it's satisfactory done by Zoom, because that limits it to a small select number. I mean, there are a lot of older people still who haven't got a computer, who haven't got a mobile phone, who can't do that. And it's unfair, I think, to exclude them from anything.
Well, we'd like to get to continue, particularly the Zoom part of it, because for us it's a great advantage, because we can be part of the forum even when we're in Scotland.
Yeah, yes, that was very good.
There's a question marks over funding at the moment, and I've got one or two interesting arguments. Like, for example, Sefton has got one of the largest populations of older people in the country. So why the hell don't they give us the funding?
Everyone should be encouraged to go and try things, learn more. You can never stop learning. I'm 67 now, and I'm still learning. There's always, every day I find new things to learn, and all mixed together, because you can learn a lot from younger people, and younger people can learn a lot from older people.
I feel all the years of hard work that's gone in to the forums, and it was a lot of hard work, but equally from what the forum members got from it. Okay, they'd meet other people, which is so important, but also the information they were given, the help they were given. I went to an event quite early on when I started the forum in Liverpool, and I thought, that's our saying. And it was, I've got to get it right. Tell me and I'll forget. Show me and I may remember. Involve me and I'll understand. Now that to me was the forums.